I remember that night like it was yesterday, even though I'm 26 now, and I was just 12 then. The memory has never left me. The fear still gnaws at the edges of my mind. It began as a quiet, ordinary night in a house that suddenly felt too big, too empty, and too dangerous to be alone in. My brother promised he'd be gone only a few hours, but what I didn't know was that the real danger wasn't outside. It was already inside. When my parents left, I felt a strange mix of excitement and nervous energy. It was the first time I had the house entirely to myself, save for my older brother, Zach, who was supposed to be my guardian for the night. He promised he'd only be gone for a few hours, heading out to hang with friends, and he made me promise not to tell Mom or Dad that he'd left. I agreed, thinking nothing of it, imagining that the house was mine to explore. At first, it was fun. I lounged in the den, flipping through channels until I found a scary movie. It was probably a bad idea. The movie was one of those horror films where every creak of the floor, every flicker of the lights, and every shadow on the wall seemed amplified. At 12, my imagination had no boundaries. I should have known better. The house groaned in ways it never had before. The wind brushed the windows and rattled the frames. The fridge clicked on and off, each sound sharper than the last. I jumped at every loud moment in the movie, eyes darting toward the half-flight of stairs leading to the main floor. I kept expecting to see someone there, waiting. Eventually, the terror became too much. I shut off the TV and ran upstairs, like a small animal fleeing predators it couldn't see. I made it to my bedroom, breathing heavily, heart pounding, and tried to calm myself. I played a little Call of Duty Zombies on my Xbox 360 to distract myself, losing hours in the game, but even that didn't help. I should have gone to sleep. I knew it, but sleep was impossible. I felt it first, a subtle vibration of the front door closing downstairs. My heart froze. I assumed it was Zach returning. It didn't make sense at first, the way the noises below the room persisted. Footsteps, creaks, soft thuds, as if someone was moving carefully, deliberately. Zach never moved this way when he came home. Panic started crawling into my stomach. My small bedroom, once a haven, suddenly felt like a trap. I tiptoed to my bedroom door and checked the lock. It was fragile. A fingernail could open it from the outside. My brain raced. If someone was in the house, I was exposed. My only choice seemed to be the small crawl-in closet built into the wall of my room. I squeezed inside, shutting the door gently behind me, pressing my back to the wood. I listened, my ears strained. The soft, deliberate footsteps grew louder as they approached my room. My heart hammered in my chest. I prayed it was Zach. It wasn't. The door creaked. The faint outline of a shadow appeared beneath it. Then the door slowly opened. My stomach dropped. Someone was inside my room. Someone I had never met. My limbs felt frozen, useless. Every nerve screamed. The footsteps moved carefully, dragging something across the floor. My mind raced through every possible outcome, all of them terrifying. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time had no meaning. The figure finally moved away, leaving the room. I stayed in the closet, hyperventilating, until I heard Zach's voice calling my name from across the house. His tone was sharp, urgent, angry even. Relief washed over me, but it was still tinged with fear. I stepped out. Zach's eyes widened when he saw me, trembling. He demanded to know what I was doing, why I was hiding. I explained as fast as I could. The gravity of the situation hit him immediately. Together, we searched the house. Drawers had been pulled out. Electronics were gone. TVs, gaming consoles, anything valuable. Someone had been inside. Someone had been methodical. Zach immediately called the police. We waited, checking doors and windows, feeling exposed in every corner. The officers arrived and went through the house, writing down what had been taken and asking us questions. They reassured us, but I knew the memory of the unknown intruder would not leave me anytime soon. By 4 a.m., my parents returned. Dad was furious, mostly at Zach, for leaving me alone and for the unlocked door. Mom rushed to me, hugging me, telling me I was safe now. Zach had to pay for the stolen items, slowly, over months. I, meanwhile, was left shaken, my 12-year-old mind unable to process the terror I'd felt trapped in that closet, listening to someone move about my room. The thing that scared me most wasn't the theft. It wasn't even the noises. It was the realization that someone had been inside my personal space. Someone had entered my bedroom while I was alone. I didn't know their intentions. I didn't know how long they had been there. And for years afterward, every creak of the floor, every shadow behind a door, every unexpected noise sent me back to that night, 12 years old, hiding in a cramped closet, praying I would survive. Even now, I can feel the terror, the adrenaline, the fear of the unknown lurking within the walls of a place that should have been safe. That night taught me something I'll never forget. Sometimes, the scariest monsters don't hide under your bed. They stand right beside it, invisible in the dark. I lived with my grandparents back then. My parents had recently separated, and my dad worked in the next town over, so I only saw him on weekends. My uncle, Dad's brother, also lived with us, so there was almost always an adult around. Life was fairly normal for a child. Cartoons in the morning, school in the afternoon, and chores in between. Our neighborhood was small and tight-knit. People knew each other, and strangers were rare. One of our neighbors, a man I'll call David, was always around. He was friendly, or at least that's what I thought. He drank with my uncle, helped my grandpa with the truck or yard work, and joined family barbecues. He seemed harmless, and as a kid, I trusted the adults around me. One Saturday night, my grandparents had to run errands. My grandma went to bingo, and my grandpa drove out to pick her up. I refused to go along. I was watching cartoons and didn't want to leave. My grandpa reminded me not to open the door for strangers, gave me a quick hug, and left. The house grew quiet. Too quiet. Only a few minutes had passed when a knock came at the door. I ran to see who it was, and a familiar voice answered, David. He said he'd just seen my grandpa leave and wanted to come in. At first, I hesitated, remembering my grandpa's warning. But he insisted, saying he was a neighbor, someone I already knew. I unlocked the door. The man who had always seemed friendly now looked entirely different. He was swaying slightly, his speech slurred, and one eye squinted as though it had trouble focusing. My small instinct screamed that something was off, but I didn't yet understand the danger. David stepped inside and put his hands on my shoulders. I tried to back away. I told him to wait in the kitchen while I went back to my cartoons, but he wouldn't let go. His voice changed, deepened, sharpened, edged with anger, and I froze. I can't remember the exact words he said, only that they terrified me. He grabbed a knife from the kitchen counter. My stomach dropped to my knees. He pressed the dull tip against my belly and asked if I wanted to be stabbed. I cried, pleading silently for someone to come home. He ran the flat side of the blade across my throat, and I felt a pain that wasn't physical but primal, a fear that clawed at my very soul. Then I heard the truck, doors slamming outside. My grandparents had returned. Relief washed over me, but David noticed them too. He shoved me to the floor and tried to escape, but my grandpa was faster. Years of hunting, years of physical labor, and years of instinct kicked in. He overpowered David, shoving him out the door and slamming it shut. My grandma scooped me up, shielding me as best she could. Even at 5, I could feel the weight of the situation. I could see the anger and fear on my grandpa's face. David was gone, but his presence lingered. I realized, even then, how close I had come to real danger. Years later, my grandparents never pressed charges. David disappeared from our lives, and I never saw him again. But I couldn't forget that night. The way he'd waited until the house was empty. The way he'd studied my routine, his patience and cunning. He had known exactly when to strike. It wasn't just a lesson in fear, it was a lesson in instinct. And though I was young, I learned that night that sometimes the people you think are safe aren't, and the shadows hiding in familiar faces can be more terrifying than anything imagined. I remember sitting on my bed, headphones in, playing one of my favorite video games. My parents had left me in charge of the house for a few hours, and I was thrilled at the freedom. No rules, no one hovering over me, just me, my room, and the quiet hum of the city outside. The first hour passed without incident. I was completely absorbed in the game, ignoring the occasional creak of the house settling. Then I heard it, a soft tap, 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 tap against the window near my bed. At first, I thought it was a branch. The wind had been picking up after all. But when I paused the game and listened, I realized the tapping was deliberate. Someone, or something, was outside. I froze. My heart hammered in my chest. I didn't know what to do. My bedroom window faced the street, and from this height, it would take some effort for anyone to even reach it. But my instinct screamed that this wasn't random. I quietly got up and tiptoed to the window, careful not to make a sound. Pulling the curtain aside just a little, I looked out, and my blood ran cold. A figure was standing on the sidewalk below, partially hidden in the shadows. A man, tall, broad, wearing dark clothing. His face was obscured, but I could see him staring directly at my window. I gasped and stumbled back, almost knocking over my chair. The tapping stopped. The silence that followed was unbearable. Every nerve in my body was screaming at me to run, but I didn't know where. I was alone, and my parents were gone for at least a couple of hours. I tried calling my mom, but the line was dead. I had no cell phone reception upstairs. I considered calling 911, but what if he saw me moving? What if he tried to break in before help arrived? My mind raced, imagining every possible scenario. Then, slowly, I heard it again. Tap, 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 but this time on the front door. I hadn't locked it. My stomach dropped. Whoever was outside had walked around the house. I remembered the old advice, if someone is outside, stay silent, stay hidden. I didn't know where to hide, though. My room had no closets large enough for me to squeeze into. I grabbed my baseball bat from under the bed and crept down the stairs. Every step felt like an eternity. The tapping continued, now faintly, as if testing the house. I reached the bottom floor and saw him. The man was crouched near the front door, his hand on the doorknob. I froze, gripping the bat, so hard my knuckles turned white. Suddenly, he looked up, and I swear, he was staring directly at me. I ducked behind the staircase railing, trying not to breathe. My mind screamed at me, do something, but my body refused to move. Minutes passed. He didn't try the doorknob again. He just stood there, tapping, staring, waiting. I realized he knew I was home. Somehow, the thought alone made me feel sick. Then, as if realizing he wasn't going to get in, he backed away and disappeared into the shadows. I didn't move for what felt like hours, listening to the creak of the floorboards as my heart slowly returned to a normal rhythm. Eventually, I dared to look outside. The street was empty. No sign of him. I stayed awake the rest of the night, clutching the bat, checking every window and door repeatedly. I didn't sleep. When my parents finally returned, I told them what happened. They called the police, who came to check the perimeter. They found no footprints, no sign that anyone had been outside. Just the quiet, empty street. Weeks passed. Life returned to normal, or at least it seemed to, until one afternoon, when I came home from school and saw a scrap of paper taped to the front door. On it was a single word, soon. I never felt safe in that house again. My parents moved us shortly afterward, but even in the new house, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was always watching. Shadows felt too dark. The wind sounded too deliberate. Every tapping, every small noise made me flinch. I eventually learned that